I said with mustard.
Make it two.
Control was good. You can see how good as two commanders lead a planetary treasure hunting Pikmin 2. With two-player mode, may the best scavenger win. Only for Nintendo GameCube. Rated E for
I don't know what it is about that commercial, but there's something about it that bothered me. It also made me really want a hot dog. Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome to the Game Reserve. My name is Jagger Newman, and I'm the Warren in these parts. Hope you all had a good work week, and tonight we are playing Pikmin 2. This game was released in 2004, and it's a sequel to 2001's Pikmin. So the original Pikmin was something of a surprise hit for Nintendo. It was a new IP for starters and on a brand new console. But despite that, the game ended up doing pretty well. It sold 1.6 million copies and received pretty good reviews from critics at the time. Needing more software for the GameCube, Nintendo immediately put a sequel into production, and it was released in 2004. One thing I find really interesting about the Pikmin series is that there doesn't seem to be a general consensus amongst gamers as to what the best game in the series is. I feel like an argument could be made for just about any game in the series, including Pikmin 2. However, of all the Pikmin games, this seems to be the one that is the most divisive. There are plenty of people who view this one as the best game of the series and think that it's a marked improvement over the first game, while there are others who feel that the changes they made were sort of ill-advised. And I'm sort of in that second camp. While I think Pikmin 2 is still a really good game, of all the Pikmin games, this is probably my least favorite in the series. I'm going to get more into why I feel that way, but yeah. And that's sort of reflected in the game's overall performance as well. While Pikmin 2 was still popular at retail, it wasn't as popular as the first Pikmin game, and I think its sales were much lower than the original Pikmin as well, because surprisingly copies of the original GameCube version are kind of hard to come by, and tend to be pretty expensive too. Even more if you're talking about the version of the game that was released for the Nintendo Wii. But yeah, why don't we go ahead and just jump right into the game. And once again, another absolutely beautiful title screen. Not a lot was done to the logo, they've just added the two, and I love the color of purple that they picked for that. The white background's great, it's just excellent title screen. Opening it with a little recap of the first game. Boom. It's still amusing that they call it an uncharted planet, even though we as the player know that that's planet Earth. That's not what I expected Planet Hockatate to look like. It's even less what I expected it to look like. The background is really cool. I like how you can see the rings of the planet. Yeah, and there's no voice acting in this game. Instead, they use some kind of funky gibberish, Banjo-Kazooie talk, I guess you could call it, for the voice acting. But the characters are still pretty expressive, and you get a good idea of what they would sound like, so your brain kind of fills in the gap. I feel that's why they used that method of speech so much back in the day, because it was a clever workaround for voice acting, sort of creating the idea of voice acting in the player's head without actually having it. Oh, that breaks my heart. That just sucks. You spent the entirety of the last game putting that damn thing back together, and they just go ahead and take it. We're left with that piece of junk. Yeah, imagine that. You survive a life and death situation, then come home to find that the company you work for is going under. What the hell is wrong with you, Louis? I wonder what the conversion rate on that is. So now we got our mission statement. So in our absence, the company has fallen on hard times, so there's treasure afoot on the planet, so suit up, Louis. We're going on a hunt. I gotta be honest, that's part of my issue with Pikmin 2. I just don't think the setup is as strong as it is in the first game. With the first game, that battle of survival that Olimar was having to undertake, it just felt more personal. This just seems, more like a typical treasure hunt. It doesn't feel like there are a lot of stakes to this setup. I'm sure he'll be fine. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the controls, and it's pretty much the same how it was in Pikmin. You move with the right stick, you can move the camera with the... Well, you move the left stick, move the camera with the right stick. B to whistle, and A to toss your Pikmin. If you hold the shoulder button, you can direct the Pikmin to charge. And that's about all there is to the controls. You can also disperse the Pikmin with the X button. But the big new feature with Pikmin is the fact that you can now play as two characters. So I push the Y button, and I switch to Louis. Shame. So yeah, so you can switch back and forth between Louis on the fly, and as you can tell, there can be a pretty good amount of distance between them. And this is actually a really good feature of the game because it allows you to multitask a lot easier than you could in the first game. So you can have Olimar supervise some Pikmin performing one task, and then you can switch to Louis, and you can continue on with exploring. Really good feature, really glad they added that, though it's a little disappointing that there's not a co-op feature here. There is a multiplayer mode, and I was hoping to have a Star on here to play with me, but they had some bid scheduling conflicts, so had to fly solo on this one. I'm hoping that they can join me for Pikmin 3 whenever I get around to that. And the Pikmin are still just downright adorable. I love these little guys. It is a little aggravating that they feel the need to give you a refresher course on the gameplay. But, it would have been nice if you had the option to skip that. Louis. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm not the biggest fan of Louis as a character. He's just so unlikable, despite the fact that he barely says a word. He caused this whole situation because he couldn't resist eating the carrots that he was transporting. And in later games, he just continues to be nothing but a nuisance, so, And, like, he's not that bad in this game. I mean, he does help Olimar out, but you kind of get the sense that he and Olimar don't really like each other. And in later games, Louis just kind of becomes a punching bag. I get the sense that the people behind this game just didn't like the guy, and a lot of Nintendo fans agree. He's up there with Slippy as one of the most hated characters in any Nintendo game. Just like with the previous game, you can direct the Pikmin to carry items. In this case, they'll take that to the onion. You need a certain amount of Pikmin in order to move an item. And if you put double the amount on there, they'll move faster. So you want to be sure to do that. So let's dig this battery out. While they're doing that, I'm going to have Louis head to the onion, so that when the other Pikmin spawn, I can just immediately pluck them. And see, like, this is actually a really good introduction to the idea of the dual character system. It just still feels a little redundant coming off of the first Pikmin, since you're having to, you know, basically be shown everything again. Alright, let's go help out the other Pikmin. Alright, hop to it, boys. Most of the time you can just direct them into it in a crowd, but sometimes it is required that you throw them at it, which is a little annoying, but hey, what can you do? Alright, let's head back to the ship. And I still really like how Olimar and Louis are animated. It almost looks like they're skipping. It's just really funny with their body types. As you can see, though, this can take a while. I wish I had more Pikmin to speed this up. Lift with your legs! Your tiny, tiny legs! Good work, men. Yeah, and a lot of the items you find throughout the game are also licensed material. I think that's an actual battery brand there. You find stuff like Game Boys, Game & Watches, stuff like that. It's actually a really clever piece of product placement. I like it. Yeah, so just like in the previous game, at the end of the day, you have to get in the ship and head into orbit because the Forbidden Planet is too dangerous for Olimar and Louis to stay on during the day. That much hasn't changed, but nope. It is kind of satisfying after a hard day of work. It is kind of relaxing to blast off into space and get that soothing tune. So relaxing. Yeah, so instead of a journal entry from Olimar or Blowy, you instead get emails from the chairman and occasionally Olimar's family. And while the messages can be really funny, it just doesn't get the same amount of character across that Olimar's journal entries did in the previous game. In the previous game, those journal entries really made you feel for Olimar's situation, and that's just kind of lost here. There is the treasure menu, where you can actually read Olimar's journal entries on it, and I think in New Game Plus, you can actually hear Louis' thoughts on everything. But, yeah, I just don't think the character comes across as strong as it used to. And just like with the previous game, when you encounter enemies, there are specific tactics that you can use to more effectively fight them. For example, little ball buzz. You can of course swarm them, but it's more effective to toss one of your Pikmin on them because they'll get squashed. However, the big Bulbas, I don't want to approach that guy from the front, so I'm going to approach him from this side because there's not teeth on this side. Attack! We lost some Pikmin. It's still heartbreaking when you lose Pikmin too. It makes you feel so bad. Yeah, you notice I can outrun the Pikmin pretty easily too. You need to let them mature, which is signified by them developing a bloom or flower. And once they have a full flower, they'll be able to easily keep up with Olimar and Louie. I'm probably saying Louie's name really funny, aren't I? Okay, so I can't take him any further, so send Louie back. Take control of Olimar, and while they're doing that, I can put these other Pikmin to work bringing down this wall. Just like in the previous game, there can be some waiting around as you wait for your Pikmin to complete tasks. It kind of makes you wish that you had a third player to play as, so that you could continue to explore while the other two are occupied with stuff. Which is something that they did for Pikmin 3. They do give you 3 explorers to play as. Again, I know how to play the freaking game. Okay, what do we have over here? Ah, our first cave. Alright then. Stay frosty. I didn't even realize it said that. We're in the snow. Yes. Alright, so this is the first of the caves in the game, and this is where the rules change. As you notice, while I'm in the cave, the timer isn't going, so I don't have to worry about the day timing out on me. And there's a lot of treasure down in these caves. You go into any one of these caves, and you're liable to knock out at least 10% of your debt. However, I'm honestly not a big fan of these caves. Just the simple fact that you're able to take your time makes them a little unappealing. And also the fact that they're kind of a visual bore. They're just these dark tunnels for the majority of the game. And while they do mix up the theme here and there, it's never as interesting as being out on the surface world, which was what you were doing for the majority of Pikmin 1. So, yeah, not a big fan of these, though they do make for interesting challenge levels. Because unlike when you're on the surface, where if you run low on Pikmin, you can go back to the onion and get more. Here you only can use the Pikmin that come down in the tunnel with you. So at most you can only have 100. So yeah, but that's not really that big a deal because you have unlimited amount of time. You can take as much time as you need to really think about what you need to do, so... Like... I really don't like playing Pikmin without a time limit because... like, as an RTS game, I feel like one of the major components you need to have is some kind of opposing force. And while there are creatures to fight in Pikmin, they aren't actively seeking you out most of the time. The world in general is pretty indifferent to you. The main opposing force in the original Pikmin was the clock. You were always on the clock, you were always conscious of how much time you had, and that worked because it meant that you couldn't take your time to, you know, figure out a proper strategy. You had to, you know, get just a little bit reckless. So, yeah, well, these caves aren't terrible. I think they're kind of bad in concept. It's one of the things I don't like about this game. I'd much rather be out exploring on the overworld. It's kind of I think a lot of people agree with me, too, because for Pikmin 3, they were removed once again. They did come back in Pikmin 4, and I didn't really care for them there either, but... Again, some people like the caves, some people don't. I personally don't like them. I'm curious what you guys would think, though. Write in the comments. Are the caves a good choice? Alright, man. Let's get this thing out of here. And right away, you know that you're not going to be able to move this thing because you can only have 100 Pikmin. So, what's the deal there? And what do we have here? Can there be black roses in nature? I don't think there can be. I wonder if a botanist has ever made a black rose before. Alright. Toss in some Pikmin. What do we have here? Ah, new Pikmin. I like the sumo kata, that's great. Yeah, so this is one of two new Pikmin. So you got the purple Pikmin, which are heavier and stronger than, you know, the standard Pikmin, but they're also a lot slower too. As you see, they have a hard time keeping up with even the red Pikmin. And with these Pikmin, you can only get them by tossing your standard Pikmin into one of these flowers here. And each flower will only give you up to 5 Pikmin. So the purple Pikmin and also the white Pikmin, who you discover later, are incredibly useful and vital to conquering the game's tougher challenges. But because it's so much harder to come by them, they're going to become something of a commodity here. Whenever I play Pikmin 2, I'm always hesitant to pull out my purple or white Pikmin. And if I can, once I'm done with them, I'm always quick to put them right back in the onion because I don't want anything to happen to them. So, again, how are we going to move this thing? So, stick my Pikmin on it again. Alright, so again, the red Pikmin can't handle it, but watch what happens when I introduce the purple Pikmin. So So yeah, purple Pikmin is the equivalent to 10 Pikmin. So I'll throw all my guys at him. And now they can actually move that thing. So again, because that's all I got, it's gonna be a while before they can actually make it to the onion. And I think the purple Pikmin actually slow down the process of carrying these things, so while they can move the bigger stuff, it doesn't necessarily make them go any faster, but that is pretty frustrating because this is like watching paint dry for crying out loud. Alright, what's the chairman have to say? Yeah, anyone who's played this game knows that he's not going to be chipper for long because turns out he didn't go to Happy Hocketate Savings and Loans. He went to, I think it's All-Consuming Black Hole Loan Sharking or something. So, yeah, as the days drag on, he'll disappear, he'll go into hiding, he'll be adopted by wolves or something like that. It's honestly pretty funny, and you would think you would need to clear the debt within a certain amount of time, but you don't. Pikmin 2, despite there being a time limit on the days, doesn't have a maximum amount of time that you have to spend playing. So with the previous game, you only had 30 days to find all the parts of Olimar's ship, at which point Olimar would either have to try to take off or he would perish. His fate would be dependent on how many parts you got. But in this game, there's no urgency. You can screw around as much as you like. And I know a lot of people found the first game really stressful, which is why they decided to take the 30-day limit off. But again, going back to what I was saying earlier about having to work against the clock, I just feel like, you lose a lot of tension without that time limit. I just feel like Pikmin is at its best when you're on the clock. However, it does make Pikmin 2 more friendly to newcomers. Though, if that was their intention, what they should have done is given players the option to play with a time limit or not. You know, like in System Shock, unless you play, if you crank the difficulty on the story all the way up to 5, you only have so much time to stop Shodan. I feel like they should have done something with that. And you can still leave the Pikmin embedded in the dirt for a bit, and if you do that, they'll sprout flowers faster. Though, considering that I'm going to need more hands later on, right now it's just best to pull them. Alright. Back to the ship. The Pikmin can still be a little brain dead too. Like, in this case, it's kind of silly that they keep climbing the empty stalk to get the berries, even though they're not there anymore. They don't trip anymore, thankfully, and they don't get sidetracked by grass nearly as much. But, no, they still have a hard time with pathfinding, and it's not uncommon for them to stray into something that they shouldn't, like water or fire, which is aggravating, as you can probably guess. Definitely want to collect up these berries, though. Alright, while those carrying those berries, I'll put these guys to work on taking down this wall. Get a hold of Louie. Have him bring the other Pikmin. So what this is telling me is, so this is another new feature of the game. It's a power-up. So if you push down on the D-pad, Olimar will spray the Pikmin with this juice, which will temporarily make the Pikmin stronger. So it's important to stockpile the berries, because when you're faced with a powerful boss and you run low on Pikmin, that can really even up the odds. So best to make sure you're stocked with that. Like in the previous Pikmin, as you're waiting for the Pikmin to do stuff like this, you were still sweating a little bit because, you know, that's precious time you're not getting back. So, like, I'm not demanding these Pikmin go any faster. I mean, again, the tension's just kind of lost here. Alright, so there's actually an enemy around here, guys. Can you see it? Let me show you. One of them flowers has eyeballs. So I need to move past this thing very carefully. Oh man, that is terrifying. Get him in! Yeah! Good tactics, Ming. Get it back to the ship. That'll be our dinner tonight. Yeah, selecting the individual Pikmin can be a little bothersome too. Like, when you only have 2 groups like this, it's fine, but when you have all 5 of them in one group, they won't always spread out far enough to where you can select the individual types. So, later in the game, it's not uncommon to think that you've got nothing but red Pikmin, only to have a stray yellow in there and see them burn to death. So, yeah, that's really annoying. Pikmin 2, again, this is still a really good game. It's full to bursting with content. There are some welcome improvements to the gameplay here, namely being able to multitask better with the inclusion of 2 playable characters. But a lot of the choices that they make in regards to the design of this game are going to divide some players. Personally, I don't think it's as good because, you know, they removed the time limit, so that sense of dread isn't there from the previous game. The plot isn't as good. Like, I don't feel for the characters like I did in the first Pikmin. And I'm not a big fan of the caves. It just kind of feels like I'm playing placeholder levels instead of exploring this big, sprawling, living ecosystem like in the first game. But at the same time, I can see why people would like those changes. The removal of the time limit does make it more beginner-friendly. The first game could be a little stressful for some people. I'd argue that is the point, but I can see the argument for why people prefer not having it, especially those who really want to explore. And while I'm not a big fan of the caves, they are a pretty good challenge. Just, I feel like they would be more challenging if you were having to make decisions on the clock as opposed to, you know, having to take your time to figure things out. So whether or not Pikmin 2 is going to be better or worse than the first Pikmin, it's really going to come down to player preference. I do not think that this is better than the first Pikmin. I much prefer the first Pikmin. And I also prefer Pikmin 3. I might even prefer Pikmin 4 over this. Outside of Hey Pikmin, this is probably my least favorite game in the Pikmin series. But the worst of Pikmin is still really good by the standards of any other video game. So still gets a high recommendation for me. Pick it up on the Nintendo Switch if you've never played this before. And, you know, if you haven't played it, also try the first Pikmin as well.